Hey guys, I want to welcome you to the weekly Wednesday for the Financial Freedom newsletter, where every week, every Wednesday, we delve into something inspirational, motivational, something excerpt taken from the Financial Freedom weekly newsletter. Wherever you are, if you're listening on Spotify, on iTunes, Google, be sure to click the like, subscribe, share, comment. And without ado, let's get into the show. Hey guys, I'm really excited about today's episode. I've got Karrington Warfield, and she's an entrepreneur, and she's an events entrepreneur. So we'll hear all about the event space before, during, and after COVID. She's also going to touch on building a personal brand, balancing work-life balance, and some of the obstacles and challenges she's faced and overcome. So, Karrington, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Chris. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah. Kind of tell the people your story and your background and how you got started, and we'll dive right into it.
Awesome. Well, again, like Chris said, my name is Karrington Warfield, or better known as Coach K, the coach's planner. I'm an event strategist. My background is in event planning. Corporate event planning actually is my niche. But what I decided to do was about a year ago was move into the strategy space. I know there's a lot of new entrepreneurs, especially after COVID, coming out, right, that have realized their gifts, right, and are wanting to monetize off of those. And so I noticed that there is a huge space for event strategy. There's a lot of coaches and entrepreneurs that are actually hosting their own events now, but they understand the logistics piece, but not the strategy behind it. And so when you have the strategy behind it, that's how you can kind of turn potentials into actual clients. So
okay.
That's what I do. I still work full time, but I decided to become an entrepreneur because I feel like in working on a job, and this is just my personal opinion, I feel like in working on a job, I don't feel like I was always paid my worth, or I felt a lot of the times undervalued. And although I still work, I'm moving into the space of like my own, like full time. So that's really important to me. And so that was one of the reasons as to why, probably the biggest reason as to why I became or decided to become an entrepreneur.
I love that. And actually, I think especially COVID was kind of a great reset. It kind of slapped everybody in the face and poured cold water. It kind of made everybody reassess. And, a lot of people are doing what you're doing. They're quitting their jobs and they're going after their dreams, getting what they're worth, and kind of standing up against the status quo. So, COVID was, kind of a disaster, but, a lot of good came out of it. One thing that was really interesting that you brought up was this idea of logistics and then strategy. What is the difference?
Well, the difference is the logistics is just that, right? Okay, booking the space, doing the social media, the promotion, the marketing, all of the things that are entailed in the event space, right? Again, book the space, book the speaker. Those are all like the event decor. That's all the logistics piece. But the strategy is, why am I doing this, right? What are my goals and objectives? And how do they align with, or how can my event align with my goals and objectives, right? And so I think people think about it, but they don't think about it, if that makes sense, right? And I feel like being in the corporate event planning industry for so long, I've done enough events to where I now understand the importance of really thinking about what your goals and objectives are. If you have an agenda, your agenda should align with that with your goals and objectives, as well as the event itself, right? You've got to provide value, which most people are probably providing value, but maybe they're not thinking about it a little bit more in depth as they should. And then the engagement piece too, especially for events that are online, as well as in events that are say face-to-face rather.
Yeah, I love that. It looks like kind of events manager or events planner is kind of like the operations, and they make sure everything's going well, all of the logistics, and then kind of the event strategist is kind of looking at from a bigger, like a visionary standpoint, and like a marketing, advertising, sales, maximizing revenue, all of that. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Because the strategist is thinking, how to align, like I said, goals and objectives. Also, not just having an efficient or running it efficiently, but effectively, and then executing it well, right?
Yeah.
That's what you want to think about. That's what the event strategist, or that's my job, is to help you think about those things, right? And to teach you how to each individual event, how to align. And everything's not going to always be the same. Not every event is the same, but to be thinking about those things for each one of your events.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And because I know, how has events changed or evolved since COVID? Because, before, we were going to all these conferences. I mean, still people are traveling. I think more of it's on the personal side, but
Right.
how has that evolved since COVID?
Well, you know what? At the beginning of COVID, a lot of people were doing, obviously, everybody went to Zoom, right? Everybody was not necessarily just Zoom, but there were other platforms similar to Zoom, but most events went online, right? And so people had to figure out a different way of actually being able to still be in front of their audience. Whereas now it's like, I've been to a couple of events, conferences, and people are ready to get out. I think people are being a lot more strategic, right? They're paying event strategists. They're being a lot more strategic. They're kind of thinking through it. And it's funny is I'm funny because I'll go to events and it's not that I'm doing this on purpose, but I'm literally saying, oh, they probably could have done this differently. They probably could have done, but this is actually helping me because that helps me to come up with different strategies when I go to events, or different strategies that I can use as an approach for a client, right? And
Yeah.
so I don't think the events have changed very much. People are still having large events. I think they're being a little bit more careful now. I won't say everybody is, but I think they're being a little bit more careful, a little bit more strategic. And I think that a lot of them are now thinking through, and like I said, hiring strategists to assist in getting that their message out, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting because, especially because I know people, for example, they're kind of doing hybrid. So they have in person, and they also have a online.
Right.
And because I know, like, in person, you get more engagement and it's more impactful, whereas online is very convenient, right? It's like, and I know, for example, because, a lot of the big organizations that, when everything canceled, they lost a lot of money. I know a lot of organizations now are being very, very strategic in how they allocate resources in case something happens again, which is fascinating. Which brings me to the next question: is this idea of, so events are really great, but I mean, you can get really burned out. And so how do you balance entrepreneurship and personal life, work-life balance? Any tips for success?
Yes. That took a little bit of time, and I won't say I've actually mastered it, but I
Yeah.
think it's important that, when you have a full-time job, it's important to kind of focus on your full-time job. And then for me, I think it's important to spend at least a couple of hours a day on your own personal things, whether it's spending an extra hour in the morning before you log into work and maybe an hour or two after work, but trying to at least an hour or two a day spending it on the things that you're doing. And I know what for me is, I always try to create a checklist of the most important things, right? Those things that need to be done, that are the most important. I think if you create a list and prioritize those things, I think that helps with me as far as the work-life balance. Also, understanding that I work hard for my company, but I want to work just as hard, if not harder, for my own business, right? Especially if I want to do my own thing at some point, right? And where I'm not clocking in, or, where I'm not working for someone. And so you've got to have that same drive and commitment to your own personal brand and your own personal business as you do for someone else's business.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And then the other thing is talking about is, you go from kind of the 9 to 5, you got a corporate, and then you're also looking to diversify yourself. How are you building a personal brand as an entrepreneur?
For me, I've got a couple of things that I'm working on right now. So one of the things that helped me is to actually build like my brand, as well as expand my audience, was I became an executive contributor for Brains Magazine. And so that's a global magazine. And so that puts me in front of a huge audience, right? Not just in the US, but in Europe and other countries. I'm also this podcast tour that I'm doing right now. So this is good because I'm in front of a different audience. Like, who'd have thought I'd have been in front of like physicians, right? We're talking to physicians about event strategy and being an event planner and all of that good stuff. I think those are things. And then being out, going to different events and things are very important too. Learning how to network is extremely important. You've got to get out of your comfort zone, go to different events, talk to people, bring your business card and exchange business cards and talk to people and not just ask like, how can they help you, but always offer your services to other people, right? I think that's extremely important. It's not just about what they can do for you, but how can I actually help you and how can I serve you?
Yeah. I love this because, transitioning from the medical field, I know, networking in the medical field is a lot different than how entrepreneurs network, and kind of entrepreneurs are just they're giving value, they're just kind of sharing, and I know physicians are a little bit more reserved, but and I love this idea of just here's your card, like exchange contact, how it details how you can help each other, answering questions, ask questions, just build your network. So
Absolutely.
yeah. Next thing is talking about, you talk about running the play and preventing procrastination. How does that fit into your overall business strategy?
You can't overthink, right? I've been to I have a mentor, and he's always like, one of his favorite things is run the play, right? Don't think about it, just do it. Take down notes when you go to during your mentoring session, take down the notes and don't think about it. Because you think about it too long. You ever heard the saying, think long, think wrong, right? Don't overthink it, just do it. Because a lot of times if we take too much time to do it, we'll talk ourselves out of it. So I think that's important. And then for me is just creating a list of, or a checklist. I know a lot of people sometimes don't like to hear the word checklist, but I think that if you create some things at night is probably the best for me, is to create a list of things that I need to get done the next day. And I do that usually at night, or be thinking about that at night, and writing those things down and getting those most important things done. And so you've got to kind of run the play. The thing about it is you have to think about it as, this is my business, right? This is my baby. If I don't do it, it won't get done. And that's just what it is.
Yeah. I love that, because I was talking to another entrepreneur on the podcast, and he was saying basically same thing as you, don't overthink it and kind of create systems. So he's got like this calendar set up. So basically when it's all like managed, he's got an assistant that does it. But once he gets that on the calendar, then it's just basically executing the play and just going through and not thinking, just getting the work done and executing. I find that
important. I think if it's not on my calendar, it doesn't happen, because I set reminders. That's good. Definitely running systems. Calendly, I use Calendly. It's awesome. It integrates with whatever calendar you use, like Google Calendar, and it integrates. It sends me reminders, and so I know, like, hey, 30 minutes before, you can set the time. However soon you want that reminder to come out, you can set that up. And so I know, I'm like, okay, I got 30 minutes. Let me prep or get ready for, whatever meeting or podcast or whatever the case. But definitely systems is important, especially automation and things of that nature. So that definitely helps.
Yeah. And I love this idea, because like the more you think, or the more you just kind of ponder and ponder and ponder, that time is basically allowing inertia to set in, and it prevents you from getting momentum. So I just love, like, you just get like I think it was Henry Ford. He was saying like the best entrepreneurs, they just execute, like the inconsequential decisions, they just execute. The big decisions, they take time to think and kind of talk to people, which is what you're describing. So kind of, I know what's interesting is in this area, a lot of entrepreneurs, they face difficulties, obstacles, and kind of talk about how you're empowering entrepreneurial women of color, unique challenges faced by women of color, talk about, resiliency.
That's a good one. You know what? I'll say that I learned resiliency become being a single mother, right? Quitting is not an option, period, right? Quitting is not an option. Do you get disappointed and frustrated at times? Absolutely. But I think that if you think about it, sometimes you kind of have to take a couple of days off, and it's not about quitting, but sometimes you just need a mental break. You need a mental break to kind of digest, marinate on some things that may have happened, or, whatever the case may be, and get back at it. You got to just keep going. You got to keep doing it. Like I said, I was a single parent and I didn't have the option to quit. I had 2 kids that were counting on me. And so I think that with that tenacity, that drive, and I was always the type of kid, I grew up in a really, really small town, and there wasn't a whole lot to do. And there's not a whole lot of opportunities in a town. Love my town, right? But a lot of small towns, there's not a whole lot of opportunities. You have to kind of get out and move to different cities and relocate to kind of get more opportunities or be open to more opportunities. And I was always that kid that wanted to do more. I wanted to see more. I wanted to do more. I wanted to travel. I wanted to, you see people traveling for their job, and I worked for a large software company some years ago as a receptionist. And I would always see, all the guys, and some of the women would be traveling. And I'd be like, man, I wish someday I want to do that. And then it was like, almost like I was manifesting those things in my mind. And so I think that when you see things that you want, you have to see it in your mind. You have to go for it. And I think that a lot of times, yes, we do have some disparities with being a Black woman or being a minority. But at the end of the day, I feel like what's for me is for me. And regardless of who doesn't think I should have it, who tries to hold me back, at the end of the day, what's for me is for me. And that's just how I feel. And like I said, you've got to have faith. You've got to be able to see things in your mind. You've got to work hard for them. You've got to go for it, run the play. And just keep going, and don't allow things that happen in life to stop you. You've got to just keep going and have that drive and that tenacity to just want it, right? And to keep going until you actually get what it is that you're wanting to do.
Yeah. And I really love that, because this concept of value it's a law of abundance, law of attraction. It doesn't look at race, color, gender, where your background. It's kind of like you manifest it, and the more value you bring. And I love this, kind of just, keep going, because what's interesting is, like you, for example, you just keep pushing, and then you see like all of the people that held you back, or all the people that kind of wronged you. And there's like, you see that there was a specific purpose for them in your life. But then you like 10 years later, like they've gone by the wayside. Like they just basically, they're nothing.
It's irrelevant.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm a firm believer in, now I didn't get it then, right? I'm 51 now, so I get it. Everything, every job, every issue, everything in life is only preparation for where you're going, right?
Yeah.
And if you can keep that perspective and keep that in mind at all times, it'll make it easier for the journey, right? Because no one's journey is easy. You see people and they're super successful and they're billionaires, and you think they just had it so great, right? And you just don't know their background. But everything that you had to go through is just preparation for your journey. And I'm a firm believer in that.
Yeah, which brings, which kind of ties into what you're talking about, just execute the play and just execute the play, because most of your haters and naysayers, they're either they envy you, or they can't do what you're trying to do. So they try to push you down, but they're never taking action. So if you just execute the play continuously over time, you build up that the compound effect, which is why, like, again, they're nothing, in 5-10 years. It's just kind of, you've elevated yourself to that conscious level. So
I love that. Yes, absolutely.
Very interesting. And how can people contact you, follow you, check out your work, reach out to you, etc.?
So I'm on LinkedIn as Karrington Warfield. You can find me on Instagram at Karrington War, WAR. Facebook as my first and last name, Karrington Warfield. Again, like I said, I do write for Brains Magazine. So you can actually find Brains Magazine on LinkedIn. And you can just go into their website. If you go to Brains Magazine online, you can type in my name and it'll pull up all the articles that I've written for them this year. And that's kind of how you get to me. My email address, like I said, all of that information is in, there's a link in my bio, a Linktree link, and it has everything that I pretty much have done all of my information, social media, all of that good stuff. Anything that I've pretty much done is in my link tree. So
Yeah, awesome. And for all the audience, let's thank Carrington for coming on. I really enjoyed talking to entrepreneurs and just kind of people that are, on the cutting edge, pushing the narrative, dictating the narrative, changing industries. And all of our resources will be in the links and show notes. And thanks so much for coming on to the podcast.
thank you, Chris. This has been amazing. This was a great conversation. And again, I thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
I hope you really enjoyed that wonderful, inspirational, motivational piece. Again, wherever you are listening, if you liked it, be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe. We're on everywhere: Spotify, iTunes, Google, Amazon, Audible. And without much ado, be sure to thank this show's sponsors, and we'll see you next week.